Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Salesforce Ben LinkedIn Live collaboration. I'm thrilled to have everyone here today, and we've got a really exciting session lined up for you. So whether you're a seasoned data analyst or just getting started in the world of data visualization, we've got you covered. So while we wait for everyone to join, let us know where you're logging in from today. We always love to see what a global audience we have attending. All right, let's get started. Okay, so thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. My name is Zaina Dar, and I'm the events content producer at Salesforce Ben, and I'll be your host for this event. I'm thrilled to introduce to you Lucas Ribeiro and Philip Schweinmeikers, who are here with us today to explore the fascinating realm of data lakes and how they play a crucial role in enhancing your Salesforce experience. So many of us consider Salesforce as a source of truth, and rightfully so. However, to unlock the full potential of your data, you need to venture into data lakes, particularly on platforms like AWS and Snowflake. We're here to guide you through the process of executing a robust data architecture solution. Lucas, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Lucas. I am a founder at River BI, and I have been working with data analytics and with data visualization and data intelligence for almost a decade now. So I'd say like 8 years, and so I'm excited to be able to share some of that wisdom and some of that experience with you guys, some of the mistakes and pitfalls, and just share a little bit of insight with you guys of what we've done with some of the best out there to help give you guys a little bit of a leg up when you guys get started, or if you're in the middle of it, hopefully get out of any pitfalls you might be in as well.
Cool, thank you. And you, Philip?
Hello, guys. My name is Philip Schweinmeikers. I am a CRM analytics consultant since 2020, since the pandemics, and I've been working with data ever since. I'm also a Tableau desktop specialist certified, and we are very pleased to be here today. Thank you very much, Salesforce 10.
Great, thank you. So now before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. So as this is a webinar, all lines are muted, but don't worry, we'll be having a Q&A at the end for you to ask Lucas and Philip any burning questions you may have. So feel free to submit the questions in the comments throughout the webinar. The webinar will also be recorded and will be available on our Salesforce Ben LinkedIn and YouTube channel, just in case you need to drop off or would like to share it with your colleagues. Cool, well, I'll hand it over to you guys to take us through the presentation, and I'll see you at the end for the Q&A.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, Zaina. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Lucas Ribeiro. My title is Data Missionary. My goal and my mission today is really to make sure that as many people can leverage data engineering as possible, and be able to, as the world of data continues to explode with more AI, with Einstein coming to the forefront, managing your data is going to be more and more crucial because the volumes of data generation is set up to 10x over the next few years, and especially in data generation rate. So really excited about that. And I have my fellow Tableau ambassador here with me, Philip Schweinmeikers. Schweinmeikers, to say it properly, guys, is a good name for you to learn how to say it properly. And yeah, Philip, if you want to say any quick tidbits there.
Hello, guys. Like Lucas said, Philip Schweinmeikers. Pronounce it correctly, please. And I'm also a Tableau investor. And since I started working with this world of data, I became passionate about it. I really enjoyed CRM Analytics, Tableau, and I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. So first thing I want to talk about to guys, give you a brief overview of some of the topics we'll discuss. Now there's a plethora of different systems you can use, from visualization, from data storage places. We're going to focus on a few here, and we're going to talk about the reasons why you would use those integrations, effective means of data backup, processes for analysis, and we're going to touch on the topic of how to get all the way to what everybody's favorite part is visualizations. But there's a lot of work that goes into being able to make sure that surface glacier shows up. And that's really what we'll focus on here today, because that's the hard stuff. and we want to make sure we can help you get through some of the harder items there. So we're going to focus today on, with the Salesforce Ben audience, obviously we're going to focus on Salesforce. Salesforce is one of the key enterprise apps that's used by every Fortune 100 company, almost every Fortune 500 company. Every company has an instance of it. It's akin to business, right? So Salesforce is a place where you're using your data for tracking your sales. You're using it for your marketing. You're using it for your customer support, and you're seeing the entire interactions with all your customers in Salesforce, right? But that doesn't mean you don't have other apps. You don't have a QuickBooks, or you don't have a NetSuite, or you don't have a series of other apps that you use in your company as well. So you can't just visualize everything just in Salesforce. You want a place to visualize it. And Tableau is by far the industry leader in being able to make sure that it can connect a plethora of data sources and be able to surface and visualize that data, right? So those are the focuses that we're going to talk about today in terms of making sure is those two platforms. And then we're going to talk about how to get, when we're talking about blending data across your business and backing up your data securely, we're going to talk about two key platforms. We're talking about AWS and Snowflake. They're by far the most popular. So they'll be the most effective for your careers. They'll be the most effective for you to leverage for large scale work, for volume, and for a lot of other purposes, including security and encryption. So that's what we're going to really focus on. And so, we'll talk a little bit about this here, but essentially Salesforce doesn't always have a default method for you to get your data with business context into Snowflake or into AWS. So we're going to go into talking about how to integrate it with business context so that you can get your data to AWS and Snowflake and then surface it into a Tableau, right? And that's the key architecture. We'll go into a little bit more detail there that all the enterprises are using. They're using a large data storage location, be it Snowflake or AWS, to get their data into, right, from all their business apps. So we're going to talk about how to get our Salesforce data into those platforms and then surfacing it in a tool like Tableau. And Tableau is by far the leader in this, to be able to see all that data side by side along with its context. So we're going to go into the integration piece of how to get your data from Salesforce into Snowflake and AWS, and then surfacing it all the way to Tableau. And I will be looking at some comments here. Some people are asking if it's getting started. It looks like it's already been started. Okay, fantastic. So understanding data, right? Now, one of the blessings of Salesforce that we all have to get to see regularly is the ability to have standard objects, right? Salesforce has for years, because it's worked with every large business out there of every industry, set up templates of objects that you can use in context with one another. And we're all familiar with some of the common ones here, your cases related to which contact opened up a case and which account it's from. And we can also talk about, your opportunities, which is your sales data, and you can track which products you're selling, to which account it's going to, and you can see the progression of it. Those are very common. And then Salesforce allows you to extend from an extremely dynamic and robust baseline into your custom, right? Businesses are all unique. They all have their unique little flavors. They can fit within the Salesforce model, right? But they have their own unique tendencies, and sometimes they need to go out and extend the baseline Salesforce model using custom objects. And custom objects is nothing but another table, right, that is contextually related to your business. And we have here, I don't know if it's very visible to everybody, but you can see we have a custom account address, which is very common for large businesses that they have an account, right? But that account, they sell several products, and those products then go to different sites or different addresses for them. And the same thing goes with your cases, right? Sometimes your cases aren't something that you just service online for a lot of us SaaS folks, but it's also something that you need to service in person, right? So sometimes that account has a service site that you want to track. So we have some examples of those custom objects in our data model here as well. All right. So custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects. So custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom objects allow you to extend that baseline into, your custom obj ways that your business can extend its tracking and interactions with the customer, with your clientele, with their history into those custom models. Now, with that comes a few challenges, right? When it comes to backing up or exposing that custom model to other places, you don't have an out-of-the-box option, right? Salesforce out of the box is fantastic because it has extremely dynamic reporting. It's really easy to set up. Any user can set up their own custom reports. But when it comes to backing up or exposing that model externally, there's not a lot of easy ways to do that, right? So if you look at the standard out of the box backups to options that we have, the standard out of the box backup is going to be just a scheduled backup that you get to do every X amount of days, right? It's not every day, but you can schedule it. I believe it's once every 28 days or once a month. And what you'll get is your selected list of tables all backed up into separate CSV files, right? Or Excel files, but essentially they're all separate, right? And at that point, you lose the context. All these connection points get lost because all you have is a column there that says this sale was done to this account ID and it was sold to this seller ID. But as an analyst, you can't go in and be able to fully extract what the context of that transaction was, right? So you lose that context. Now you get the data back up, you get your security, you get your storage, and that way if anybody goes in and deletes a record, you have it backed up. But when it comes to joining that data, you then need a Salesforce expert along with your analyst that could be using, it could be just a Tableau expert, it could be your offline Excel, whatever that is, they lose that context, right? And you need to rejoin that by looking at the Salesforce architecture. All right. Let's quickly say hello. I see more and more people coming in. So hello again, guys. And yes, this will be recorded and will be available to you guys, and we'll make the slides available as well afterwards. So what are the hindrances of an out-of-the-box backup, right? So let's say in the context that we want to visualize, we'll use an out-of-the-box backup. We download all of our data, like I said, into separate CSVs from Salesforce and then from your other enterprise apps, and then you manually have to blend them and re-clean all your data and rebuild all the relationships and contacts, right? So there's a manual download process. It's not in a persistent shared environment. When you're downloaded it to a PC, that's not something that's available to the entire business. And most costly of all is it's really, really difficult to analyze. Because it's just snapshots of data backed up, you don't have the business context, that the wonderful Salesforce 360 brings you, and you have to rebuild that, right? And so rebuilding that so that you can see that this sale was completed by this seller in this period of time, all of that requires you to understand what you want out of it, understand the relationships, and then for you to retie everything back together to then even get to the visualization. Okay, so what is the next option, right? So when it comes to large enterprises, that lack of persistence, that manual link backup, and the lack of regularity, right, the low frequency, isn't something that's very scalable, right? So as you guys go into, larger businesses or any business, with a higher volume of data, you're going to want to back things up more regularly. So you're going to want to go to a different architecture, right? So we're going to talk about two different options. One that's going to be a low code, low overhead variety. And also we're going to give you an example of a full stack option, which in MuleSoft, as you can see in these diagrams, the difference is here, instead of manually downloading your CSVs, what you have is you have your Salesforce data. And on the left here, we have Salesforce's data pipelines tool, backing up your data into a Snowflake or your S3 buckets. And we'll talk about the variances and benefits of each. And the same thing with your enterprise apps. Now, most other enterprise apps, from NetSuite to Asana to QuickBooks, SharePoint, they all have integrations into these platforms out of the box. Now, they're not always within business context, but at least you get those transactional data points all into a single place. And then once you get those data points into a single place, you want to surface them to a visualization tool like Tableau, right? And then within Tableau, you can build your dashboards and you can see all of your entire enterprise's history of data side by side and analyze it in a persistent manner. So going back to the value, right? Now we have something that's persistent, something that's in a shared location that can be analyzed together across the entire business. You have something that then increases the frequency, right? By using one of these tools, either MuleSoft or data pipelines, you will be able to adjust what that frequency is, right? Data pipelines from Salesforce or CRM Analytics Plus, which includes data pipelines, has actually increased like a Snowflake integration to be done, within certain frequencies of minutes. I believe you won't want to do it within minutes, right? There's a lot of considerations there. But you can back it up every hour, intradaily, weekly, and it's much more flexible than the original monthly option, right? So that's going to be the key benefits that you have there for an intelligent backup system. And the next benefit is you get in-context data, because you get to manipulate the relationships when you're backing up into a Snowflake or an S3, either through MuleSoft or data pipelines. You'll have the option to expose that data with its relationships intact, right? So you'll get a single table in your Snowflake database that is similar to what you would get within a report in Salesforce, right? So you get your opportunities with their products, you get the opportunities with their sellers, you get the opportunities with their related accounts. And if you have a custom object like your custom addresses to know where you ship them to, you can get those custom account addresses included there too, right? So you get that full 360 view into that business transaction, backed up with frequency, and then once again in a shared persistent space. And that allows your business to then have a flywheel, rather than having to always have analysts rejoining your data left and right and left and right, as plenty of us have seen in the past, which is we have a whole team of financial analysts downloading data from all their different systems and then having to then blend it to then give you a dashboard, right? And this process allows you to then scale that, automate that, and focus on analyzing and getting value from your data, rather than always trying to piece it together and then having to get, some likely manual mistakes from that. So these are some of the options we're going to go into today. I do want to talk a little bit right now about some of the differences here, since we're mentioning Snowflake and AWS. Now, we're going to give you an example of an S3 bucket integration today, because those are shared outputs between MuleSoft and the data pipelines tool. But so S3 bucket is going to allow you to just basically dump and version your data into CSVs, into what's called objects. And those objects, right, along with these tools, you can have it to have the full context of your report backed up, right? And it's not going to be limited to a certain row count or anything like that. You'll have versions of it. All those options will be made available to you, and it's an encrypted space. And AWS lets you get set up and running really, really quickly, because all it is a dump of a CSV file in a shared space, right? Now, you're not going to have in an AWS S3 bucket without migrating to another AWS tool. You're not going to have the ability to query that data directly, right? So you're not going to have the ability to then analyze that data or blend it with your other data, right? You're going to need to expose that as a published data source into your Tableau, so that you can use Tableau to then surface that visualization. But Tableau allows you to do that. So it's the fastest to get you up and running. It's the lowest cost up front, because it's the lowest amount of effort you need to do to get your data backed up. Now, Snowflake is it's the most popular data lake out there. And Snowflake allows you to not only, right, be able to get your in-context data and reports backed up and versioned, but more importantly, it has tools built in where you can preview the data. You can set up automations to blend data into certain views. You have the options like no copy sharing, right? So whereas in an Amazon transaction, you're going to have to pay per query essentially every time there's a back and forth, and they have to, send data to a user, to a computer, to a Tableau. That's going to have a transactional cost. Whereas in Snowflake, that's not going to be a focus issue for you, right? You can architect it in a way where you can just have that there. And then you can have live connections into your Tableau and schedule the refreshes into it, so that, your Tableau users get not only data persistence, but they get up-to-date data with relatively high frequency. All right. I'll take a quick pause there, just give a glimpse of the questions. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, guys. But just want to see if there's anything that we can help with. All right. And then with, so like I said, with Snowflake, you're going to have that ability to have a little bit more of analysis, share it with your other business partners, and they both platforms though have integrations, like I mentioned, for all these enterprise applications. And you guys can see a little bit more details when we do share the deck. All right, so those are some of the more popular Salesforce data integration tools that are native. And like I said, because these are native tools, you want to make sure the tools that you're using are going to be fully encrypted, right? This is business data we're talking about. These are the architectures that are used by all the Fortune 100 companies. They have a system like this where their Salesforce data gets blended and backed up, and it's sent across an encrypted pathway into these data systems, right, for future analysis, and then connected back into Tableau. And using Salesforce native products, you have the full, in everything in the Salesforce ecosystem, you have that assurity that you're following all compliance rules and all compliance laws, and you don't have to have any unnecessary risk to your data. All right, so let's go into a specific example, right? So what is data pipelines? And most people aren't familiar with data pipelines. I see here, I will get you your question, but yeah, frequency recommendations, I'll talk a little bit about it here as well. Data pipelines is a tool that allows for no code. It's fully declarative. You can just select what your data points are, and you can build the relationships, shape your data, and tell it where you want it to go, whether it's directly in CRM Analytics or Tableau, or if you want to back it up, in our case of what we're discussing, into a Snowflake or into an Amazon S3 bucket, right? It's Salesforce native, right? So you don't even have to log in anywhere else. You don't have to set up anything else. It's just there and available to you. And it has a plethora of ever-growing connectors built in to not only take data out from Salesforce out to these platforms, but you can also, if you want to bring data in and write it to your Salesforce, Data Pipelines has the ability to do that directly as well. And just to iterate it again, but it's fully encrypted, everything is included, and it's a very efficient tool. It has a flat rate, so you buy it in terms of units. Not a lot of people know about this. And the prices always vary, so check with your AE. But I'm pretty sure that each unit is going to cost is about $5,000 a year, maybe less, depending on what relationship you have with Salesforce. And that allows you for, I think, up to 100 million rows daily of transaction fields. You can have multiple hours of data transitioning. Yes, it is recorded, and you guys will have access to this a little bit later. Data pipelines will have that ability to then have high volumes of data, high transaction, high throughput, high availability, and it's a flat rate, right? You don't have to worry about having any mistakes here or there. It just has large data volumes, and it's trusted by Salesforce's largest clients. I don't know how much detail I can go into that, but if you just look them up, they're pretty available there. All right, and another tool is MuleSoft. Everybody's familiar with MuleSoft. Well, a lot of people are familiar with MuleSoft. It's probably one of the most popular ETL tools out there. There's other ones if you guys don't want, like I said, it's a Salesforce native product, so there's plenty of advantages there. But there's Informatica, Alteryx, other tools like that. And these tools have low coding to complete custom code available for you to build full-fledged APIs off of, right? MuleSoft is meant to be your API layer for all your business apps. And with that, it has the ability to query and transform data and integrate it with your data lake or with your data backup source, right? And then it can also then make sure you can expose any of that data directly or transform that data and expose it into Tableau, right? So it has an ever-growing library of connectors, right? Data pipelines, MuleSoft probably has the most connectors in the business. I don't have the actual numbers there for you guys, but it also has the ability to have a marketplace where people can share a lot of items like this. All right, so yes, I saw a question coming in about ERP and SAP, and yes, right? One of the big goals here is to make sure that, depending on which connector you're using, you're going to have connectors into your ERP, and you're going to be able to blend it, right? Part of this model of what this is going to allow you to do is if you have an SAP or if you have an Oracle and you want to see your manufacturing data, against your sales data, Tableau is going to be the perfect tool where you want to visualize that, and you're going to want to centralize that data into a place like Snowflake or back it up into a place like Amazon so that you can then surface it in Tableau and blend that data. All right, so MuleSoft is going to allow you to go ahead and do that. All right, so data transformation and preparation. Now, this is really, really important. This is probably where most of the work comes from. When we first started the talk, we talked about manual backups and having your data separately into a bunch of files. The designing of being able to use a MuleSoft or data pipelines or any other ETL tool that you want to choose, it's not just about connecting to your source, but it's about the availability of rebuilding your transformations so that you can make sure that your opportunity is looking up to the account using the right field, right? And the way that I recommend doing this when you're backing up your Salesforce org is going to be using Schema Builder. Now, everybody who has an admin certification, has seen the Schema Builder. People vary from my experience in using it day to day, but it's one of the most robust tools to be able to visualize what your Salesforce architecture looks like. And you can see which fields and which relationships they're using, and you want to make sure you're using that. So I put the link here so that if you don't have experience with it, I definitely recommend that everybody familiarizes themselves with Schema Builder. If you're in the Salesforce world and you're going to be leveraging data at any point, that you go to the Schema Builder and you play with it and you understand how your opportunity relates to account, how many relationships, what is it used for? And you can see it in an interactive and visual way, and you can choose all the objects and you can see a lot of relationships going through. That will give you the baseline if you're going to build any ETL. Right, so we're not going to have enough time in this call to go into a full tutorial on how to do things. In the MuleSoft, we're going to show you what a recipe looks like in data pipelines, so you can see what that relationship building and ETL building looks like. But the most important tool to analyze those relationships and understand how that mapping works is going to be your Schema Builder. Now, that's not always necessary because a lot of you guys are familiar with your standard objects and the standard object architecture. But especially if you have a lot of custom objects or even just a few, you want to know how they're relating and make sure they're relating properly so that when you do visualize that data or it is exposed to somebody else in the business, that it is in the proper context, right? And this is not a tool that's available outside of Salesforce. So normally when you're backing up into a system loosely, you lose that business context because people don't know how those fields relate. This is going to be the tool for you to be able to share that information. This is going to be a big key tool to also make sure that you are able to analyze how to build an ETL tool. All right. So it's the number one best practice. Otherwise, you want to understand, some terms like data granularity. You want to look at limitations. You can look at your report types for that. You can see what are the limitations, right? You don't want to just connect everything that is connected to each other. You want to make sure that you're connecting just the values and relationships you need for that query or for that data set that you're outputting into your instance of Snowflake or into your object in Amazon S3. You really want to limit it to the questions that people are going to be asking of that data. You don't want to include too much information because then that becomes too much for people that aren't familiar with the data to know which field is which and what's related to, right? You want to select the fields that matter. You want to select the relationships that matter. And then as you get more requests, you'll be able to reference the Schema Builder again and add to that downstream ETL process. All right. So been talking a lot about ETLs. What do recipes look like, right? So recipes is what we call an ETL tool used in the data pipelines tool. So we're going to talk a little bit about data cleansing or data automations, a lot of data cleansing and relationship automation. There's a lot of terms thrown out there. Essentially, a lot of times when you hear the word data cleansing, it could vary, right? But most of the times what we're talking about in a data engineering context is making sure that for that query that you're leveraging the proper architecture, that you're not connecting your opportunity to the opportunity, to the user table using the last modified by when you're looking for what sellers sold an opportunity. You want to use the owner, right? Or you want to reference down to your opportunity teams, right? And you want to use the proper relationship hierarchy, right? In right fields to get your opportunity teams table, relate it to your opportunity, get the user that's related to that opportunity team member, right? And then you want to use those proper relationships, and that allows you to have clean, right? Because if you look at the user table, there's always at least 3 relationships to the user table in Salesforce. If you're not selecting the right one, you're going to get bad data in response, right? You don't want to know who modified the opportunity last, or maybe you do. But in the context of looking for who sold something, you want to look at the owner or the team member with the right role, right? So being able to understand that, you're going to refer to the schema builder, and you're going to make sure that you're looking at the right points of data for that. So we're going to look at here, Philip is going to go in, he's going to demo a couple of recipes that he's going to generate and show you guys what it looks like to have a recipe into AWS and then into Snowflake. We're going to use a little tool to hasten this, our own tool that we have called Recipe Pro that helps you do some of this work, but we're going to go into and show you guys how to do it manually as well, and show you what a recipe actually looks like, so that you guys, when you guys go to put this together, you're going to be able to do it yourselves. Philip, are you ready for that?
Yes, I am. Hello, guys. Can you all see my screen? Yep. So this is Recipe Pro, our engine tool that does exactly what Lucas said. Basically, what we have here is a list of our org Salesforce report types, right? Let's pick a custom one, this accounts with addresses. And once you click at the button, we generate the recipe, and we select the output, Amazon S3. And then we send the recipe. Okay, and now you guys are probably thinking, what did Philip just do? Basically, what Recipe Pro does is we get the report type from the list, look into the API, convert this report type into a Salesforce recipe, a CRM analytics or a data pipelines recipe, and after this, we push this data to the output we selected. In this case, Amazon Web Services, but we can also select CRM Analytics, Dataset, or Snowflake, or Tableau. Let me show you the recipe that we just generated that's already running right here. This is the recipe that we generated with a single click based on the report type we selected, with all the objectives being loaded and all the joins, the transformations being performed, and also this transformation to change the fields labels to a unique label between all of them. This is necessary if we intend to push the data to Tableau. We must have each column with a unique label. Okay, and the output node that we selected to push the data into AWS. Okay, that's basically what you do with a single click. Now, let's suppose we want to do the same thing for Snowflake. Let's select this custom report type like right here. We select the Snowflake output right here, and we receive this code right here. What is this code? We need this to generate the table inside our Snowflake environment. So we need to create the table previously, then to push the data right here in Snowflake. Let me show you how. Here is my Snowflake environment. I copy the code. Let's generate a new SQL worksheet. Let's select our database Recipe Pro, and our schema also is Recipe Pro. And we need to select our data warehouse as well. Then we're going to paste the code and run it. We have created our table. Once we have created our table, we can push the data to Snowflake with Recipro. Okay? This is how the engine works, basically. Selecting the report type between all of them, right here. Converting and generating the recipe, and then pushing the data of the recipe to a platform where the data is going to be used. In this case, we just push the data into Amazon Web Services and Snowflake. Okay? Do you guys have any questions at the moment? Anything that you want to ask right now? Or Lucas? Otherwise, you can continue with the... Any questions? I think you are on mute, Lucas.
Yeah, could you go back into the recipe, Philip, and share again? Sure. I want to show people actually selecting an object and what it's like to build a join. So that not in Recipe Pro, but actually in the data pipelines tool or the data prep tool.
Sure, sure. Let's create a new recipe.
So normally the process would be this, right? We want to make sure people understand how to do it, right, from baseline.
Opportunities, let's get the most famous one, opportunity and the accounts, right? Here we are selecting the object directly from our Salesforce org, right? And here we can select the columns of the object, okay? This can be changed later, and let's get also the user object. And okay. Now we have 3 objects. How do we create a recipe with an output of data? First, we have to augment our account data into opportunity with a join, right? This, the account, opportunity, the account ID, look up to the account ID field of the account object, and we apply. We have our data. Now we have to augment our user data to the owner field of the opportunity. Let's label our relationship owner. Apply. After this, if we want to push our data to Tableau, we have to make our labels unique. For example, we have, in this case, we all of them are unique. But suppose that we have several different objects with name, just name. This need to be changed prior to sending the data into Tableau environment. So we would have to add this transformation right here and relabel all the columns manually that are duplicated, right? Only the ones that are duplicated. And after all of this, we have to select the output. In this case, a CRM analytics dataset, but you can select an output connection, AWS or Snowflake or Tableau. And then select the object manually that we are going to push our data into, okay? With Recipro, you can do all of this with a single click. You don't have to select the object, because once you generate the recipe, it will create a new object inside AWS. What does this mean? This means that you don't have to insert data within an existing object. For example, this object is going to generate new data. You don't have, with Recipro, you don't have to insert this data within one of these existing buckets. The bucket needs to be created previously, right? With Recipro, no, they can be created on the fly while you push your data. This is the great advantage of Recipro, because you keep your data separated, right? That's what we want. A concise data, but separated.
Awesome.
Do you want to show anything else, Lucas?
No, I think it's really important to show about building relationships, so that when they want to build their own, that they're capable of going in and building their own recipes, and they want to make sure. We'll make sure that those steps. There's articles available for building recipes as well. So if you guys want to see that, Salesforce has wonderful documentation on how to build all of these. But definitely wanted to give you guys a visual preview of that. You can go back to the slides. All right. So once you have your data backed up, right, we talked a little bit about backing your data up into a common place where you'll also have your other enterprise apps backed up into. The next step is going to be visualizing that. Now, Tableau is by far a leading app for data visualization. It was founded in 2004, 5 maybe. I'll have to double check that, but it's a leader in the space. It has connectors to a lot of different places. But if you want to avoid data blending, we definitely recommend that you use it, with an AWS or with a Snowflake or with your data lake of choice. But places that have the more connectors to, the easier you can get your data into, the easier you can surface that and visualize it in Tableau. So visualizing is a final step, but Tableau has connectors already built in, and you can bring Tableau in, like I mentioned earlier, the Salesforce native experience, right? There's pre-built widgets and Lightning components that you can just drag in your Tableau dashboard and make it available into your Salesforce instance. Tableau has tools that you can make it available elsewhere for anybody, whether they have Salesforce or not. And that way you can expose your Salesforce data alongside its other related business data into Tableau as well, right? And then, and that's really the advantage of this, right? We want to make sure that we get as much business context data transformed, already surfaced into Tableau, so that way you have to minimize what you have to do with a Tableau. Tableau does have a tool called Tableau Data Prep. We won't have too much time to go into that, but it does similar tools as we just showed you in the data pipelines data prep tool, where it allows you to rebuild relationships or join data. But as much as data you can have already with its context in place, especially coming out of Salesforce with this plethora of tables and relationships, it's really important that you can save that time for your analysts. So Philip is going to show you guys here just a quick option, right? Show you a little bit of an example of a contrast of what a published data source looks like into, and we're not going to be able to show you any credentials for us, but it'll show you what it's like to get a published data source, at least, the connector example, right? Of how you would pull that up in Tableau. And the same thing in Snowflake. Snowflake has a more robust connection for this, where you can see all of your tables. And then if you have a Play Tableau account, the one he's going to be demoing you is on a trial. But you can schedule those refreshes to come in from Snowflake, and you can see all of your connections and tables and anything that we've backed up into a Snowflake instance right from Tableau. And then you can put all that data into a worksheet. So he's going to give you a quick demo of that. If we can switch to that presentation of your screen there, Philip. That way we can take a look at it.
Sure, let's go. I just like, before starting the presentation, I'd like to answer a question from Kailash Sati. Why do we need Recipro? Is it a paid app as well? First of all, yes, it is a paid app. And why do we need Recipro? Let me show you again the recipes really quickly. Do you recall the presentation that I just show you guys about creating a relationship of data, joining one of them, and then creating the output manually? Recipro does this for you automatically, programmatically. You don't have to manually add the joins, perform the connections, etc., and select the output. Recipro does that automatically for you. That's the advantage of Recipro, right? Because otherwise, imagine, for example, we can use report types, right? You guys know that Salesforce admins can create up to 4 relationship report types with father and child objects, right? But between these objects, if you bring other fields from custom relationships, because you can do that, you can bring objects from custom different relationships outside of these 4, you can end up having data from 60 different objects in a single recipe. Imagine loading 60 objects manually, one by one, into a recipe, then performing a join one by one manually, and then a single output, eliminating the duplicate columns manually. That's the advantage of Recipro, guys. This is what Recipro does for you. And now,
but I want to be clear, it's a benefit, right? Just Philip, it's not
yes,
required, but if you have the time, you can build these things manually. If you don't have the time, or you
true.
want to save time, you can go ahead and use it in an automated fashion and have it generated for you. Yes.
Now, showing the visualization presentation that Lucas talked about, let me show you. This is the Tableau online environment, and let me show you how you can plug the data that we just push into AWS and Snowflake. How can we load this into Tableau and then utilize it to create visualizations? Let's get here in the manage project and my default project. This right here is a virtual connection that I created to our Snowflake environment. Okay, let's open it. It has these tables over here that I loaded, but I can add more tables. I need to edit my virtual connection right here. It will ask for my credentials. And I insert here the password. Now I authenticated my Snowflake environment, and I need to select the warehouse, the database, and the schema that we are using. Recipro. Now we can choose any of these tables that we want to load into our data. For example, let's get this this one right here. Let's select this table, and also, okay, we have this table with these columns. Okay, fine. We're going to publish this as a data source right here in our Snowflake. Now we can use this. Once it's published, we can use this data source to create a workbook. A workbook in Tableau is like a widget in CRM analytics to analyze our data. We here on this site, we select the data source right here, the virtual connection Snowflake. We connect it. And then we can select all the tables in our virtual connection to build our visualizations right here. Okay? Let me show you the same thing. Go on, Lucas, sorry.
No, I was saying we're running a little bit close on time for Q&A. If you can quickly show I think you were moving on to.
Yeah, man. I'm just showing how you can do the same thing with Amazon Web Services. Now we have to click a publish data source because we are doing the S3 bucket. We click here, connectors, Amazon S3. Let's type our credentials right here, the region of the bucket. The bucket name, the access key, and the secret key. Now that we created the connection, we can select the objects that we are going to use. Just keep in mind that you can select only one object per connection. If you want to select more than one table, you need to create another data source and etc. manually here in Tableau. You select the opportunity, select this one, and click connect. Our data is now loaded here into Tableau.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Philip. Let's go back.
It takes a while, as you can see. It takes a while.
Yeah, but the process from here on is the same, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Let's go back to the slides really quickly. Just want to show you guys one last slide here, and just to reemphasize, as everybody knows in the Salesforce environment, the value of this methodology is because it's all using trusted platforms with trusted connections and trusted processes and all over encryption. You have security, you have full compliance. All the platforms we showed you are the ones that are most popularly used by the largest enterprises, and they all go through any compliance concern that you might have. You can see it on any of these related platforms' websites, and you can search up their compliance terms. But that's really important to a lot of people. I do want to go into Q&A, and I want to answer some questions here from people. Go ahead, Sana.
Cool. Thank you so much for that really insightful presentation, guys. Hopefully our audience now feel much better equipped to navigate the world of data lakes. So without further ado, let's open the floor for questions. So if you have any questions for Lucas and Philip, please feel free to submit them in the comments and we'll try to get around to as many as possible. Okay, cool. So I know you touched on this briefly, Lucas, but what was the frequency recommendations for sending data to the different data systems?
So I think that really depends on the context of how frequently is that going to be consumed? Is that necessary for the business requirement? So, in terms of security, how often is it transacting? How often are you deleting data? A lot of little questions there. You definitely want to go probably more often than monthly, but you can go as little as monthly depending on the transaction rate and interaction rate. And then you want to go as quickly as hourly if it's critical data that needs to be integrated with downstream systems and it needs to be analyzed quickly. And there's a lot of people going to that. So that really depends. And there's ways to go even faster than that if it's business or the business requirements. It really depends on the business context of who needs to see that data and how regularly that data comes in. That's a really good question.
Thank you. So could this connection be utilized for further connections like SAP, ERP, and data sync from there without building complicated tables on SAP?
So yes, it is possible for you to do that. There's a little bit of more nuance to that question on building complicated tables, but you can use these connectors. They have built connectors into and data from SAP so that you can leverage it. And then you can use a no-code tool like data pipelines or MuleSoft's no-code tool to both of them to connect to SAP and then rebuild it from there. And that way you don't have to build the complicated tables in SAP. You can put them together using the ETL tools available with low code. So declaratively. Good question.
Thank you. So what's the significant difference between Snowflake versus Salesforce Data Cloud? What would be the deal breaker to choose one than the other?
Well,
Yeah,
first of all,
go ahead, Philip. Yeah, I'll let you do that.
No, I'd say that Snowflake is a data warehouse, and Salesforce Data Cloud should be used as a data consolidation to have a 360 view of your customers. Those are completely different tools for completely different purposes. You shouldn't think of data warehouse, of Data Cloud as a data warehouse. It's a different tool. It's a tool to consolidate data from different platforms, Salesforce platforms, especially Marketing Cloud, into a single customer 360 view. That's the goal of Data Cloud. While Snowflake is a data warehouse where we will actually store the data, perform queries, etc., create calculated fields, and etc., do all the transformations and functions of a data warehouse.
And I would say because of the maturity levels, I would add that Snowflake has a lot more ingestion components with other popular enterprise and business apps, whereas Data Cloud is still a little nascent to do that. So it's not going to have, it's in the future, it will have more of that availability to bring that data in if you want to make it your source of truth, but for consolidation purposes. But Snowflake is just more robust and it has zero copy sharing, which is a high value for a lot of businesses.
Cool, great. So can we perform transformations and joins when data is already extracted into Tableau?
Do you mean once the data is already inside Tableau? If so, yes, you can, but you need to create. We can do it using two different ways. First, you can create a flow. It's like a recipe, but inside Tableau environment now. They call data prep, Tableau data prep. And you can create computational joins, etc., between different data sources, or you can create a calculated field or formula inside the worksheet itself. So yes, you can create formulas. The joins can be created only with the flow, but the calculated fields can create it using these two different forms.
Thank you. So are CRM analytics required for performing data transformations?
No, not at all. It's not required. It's data pipelines or data prep is included in CRM analytics, but data pipelines, like I mentioned in the presentation, is a separate tool. You can use MuleSoft. There's a plethora of tools that you can use for transformations. It's not required.
Okay, thank you. So could you share your thoughts on the other direction? So he wants to sync a database in AWS with a contact object. Any change in AWS should be updated in Salesforce in real time. What's the best way to build that sync?
The best way to build that sync for it to be done in real time, I mean, unless your AWS is directly the place, you'll be looking at building triggers from AWS. I would suggest looking at a tool like MuleSoft, and MuleSoft will be able to build an API on top of that where it's listening for any events triggered, and then it'll pull that record in. That'll be the best way for that.
Great. Can we perform transformations and joins when data is already extracted into Tableau?
Yes, like I said previously, yes, you can.
Yeah, cool. Does Tableau keep a copy of records for visualizing data, or are they simply a snapshot? That said, does it use an API call when it extracts data?
It's a good question. It is just a snapshot of the data, but you can see, I think you need to purchase a license called Tableau Connect or something like that, so you can schedule the refreshes of the data. All the data that we saw are just snapshots of the data at the moment, but you can, with this license that I mentioned, you can schedule data refreshes, so your data is always updated and in sync within Tableau.
And we can also use a tool, one of the integration tools like MuleSoft and or data pipelines to schedule that to push data into Tableau regularly as well, depending on your source. So just
Great. Cool. Well, we're coming up to the hour now. So unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you so much to everyone for attending. We hope you found today's session useful and now feel more confident tackling data architecture challenges. I'd like to extend a big thank you to Lucas and Philip for sharing their insights with us today. Before we sign off, any final words, guys?
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you very much, guys. I really enjoyed. I'm a really big fan of Salesforce Band. So I got my first certification thanks to Salesforce Band. So thank you.
Hopefully we added value. Reach out to us on LinkedIn. Philip and I love sharing knowledge with the community. So if we didn't get to your question, or you thought of a question afterwards, or you caught this on a recording, reach out to us on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to answer your questions and try to help guide you in any way we can. If it's an answer that's, could be good for the community as well, feel free to post it so that we can, share it in a more public fashion. We love education. We love supporting and being able to provide some education through Salesforce Bend, which is the best education platform that Salesforce knows, right? So it's an honor, and thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Great. Well, thank you again to everyone for attending, and we hope to see you again for our next webinar soon. Take care, everybody.